Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. The U.S. Federal Reserve is expected to slash interest rates by 50 basis points in its policy meeting this month. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. says flood control projects will get zero budget in 2026. The Commission on Audit flags more than a dozen former public works officials and 3 contractors for fraudulent flood control projects in Bulacan, worth over 342 million pesos. All that and more coming up. Standard Chartered expects the U.S. Federal Reserve to cut interest rates by 50 basis points at its policy meeting this month. The forecast is double its earlier projection of a 25 basis point reduction following a weak August jobs report. U.S. job growth slowed sharply last month, while unemployment climbed to a near 4-year high of 4.3%. Analysts say the softening labor market strengthens the case for a larger rate cut, a move that could ripple across global markets, including the peso, equities, and bonds. Let's take a look at how global financial markets performed overnight. Wall Street closed higher, boosted by a rally in Broadcom and growing bets that the U.S. Federal Reserve will cut rates to support growth. A weak U.S. jobs report on Friday sparked fears of a slowdown, with investors now expecting multiple rate cuts this year. The report had dragged markets lower in the previous session and heightened concerns over the world's biggest economy. CME Group's FedWatch tool shows traders fully pricing in a 25 basis point cut when the Fed ends its 2-day meeting on September 17th, with futures also reflecting a 10% chance of a bigger 50 basis point cut.
There is this push-pull going on. I think after the jobs report last week, it became a virtual certainty that the Fed would cut rates, which the market tends to like. But because that has been the rumor for so long now, it's probably not particularly new news. And I think investors are starting to think even more about, okay, well, if the Fed has to cut rates, that means the economy is not doing so well. And then they still have this dual battle with inflation. So maybe the cutting rates, which is already in stock prices, maybe it's not going to drive further improvement, at least for a while. So you get not much happening.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.3%, the S&P 500 higher by 0.2%, and the Nasdaq up by 0.5%. Over in Europe, markets also ended higher. London's FTSE rose 0.1%. Germany's DAX higher by 0.9%, and France's CAC 40 up by 0.8%. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or the BSP, may hit pause on monetary easing in October after inflation climbed to a 5-month high in August. Union Bank Chief Economist Ruben Carlo Asuncion says it will be hard for the central bank to justify another rate cut next month, with price pressures starting to rebound. Security Bank's Angelo Taninco agrees, adding that rising risks point to a likely pause in October. However, he still expects the Monetary Board to deliver a 4th 25 basis point rate cut by December. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. orders a zero budget for flood control projects next year, a direct response to the country's biggest corruption scandal in decades. Marcos says 350 billion pesos allocated for flood control in 2025 remains unspent. So the Department of Public Works and Highways will have to submit a revised proposal to Congress. The president stresses flood control works will continue, but this time under tighter monitoring. For businesses, this move is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it signals the administration is serious about curbing corruption. On the other, it creates uncertainty around crucial infrastructure spending, a key driver of jobs, investments, and growth. The big question is, can the government restore credibility fast enough to keep investors confident? Now, Senator Tito Soto is now Senate President, taking over from Chiz Escudero in a leadership shakeup triggered by the flood control controversy. Soto secured 15 votes to oust Escudero after reports surfaced that one of Escudero's 2022 campaign donors was among the country's top 15 flood control contractors. New Senate Majority Leader Migs Zubiri, who nominated Soto, says the chamber needs reliable and trustworthy leadership.
As Senate President, he always led with fairness and transparency, and he led with an open ear and a decisive hand, ensuring unity and stability in the Senate at all times.
The shakeup raises big questions about how the Senate will handle corruption probes, the 2026 budget, and its role in restoring public confidence. Now, the transfer of power at the Senate is more than a political story. It has implications for governance, policymaking, and the economy. And with corruption scandals in flood control projects dominating the headlines, Senator Risa Hontiveros joins us now to discuss what this means, what this new leadership means for business confidence and national stability. Good morning, Senator, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me, Ms. Maiki. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, let's get straight to it. Senator Risa, did you see the shakeup coming, and were you surprised by the speed at which it happened?
I wasn't surprised by the speed. Actually, I think effective and beneficial transitions in the Senate have always happened, not over a protracted period, but in a reasonably short time, so that there's a little bit less pain and there's more continuity in the work of the Senate and what it contributes to the nation's development. I wasn't caught by surprise by the process because since we always say in the Senate, deliberative body kami, this was also a deliberative process. For those of us who were finally enough in number and confident and hopeful sa aming pakiramdam to effect this transition in the leadership and to elect now Senate President Tito Soto as our SP.
Yeah, it was nicely, cleanly done, fast, with continuity. You voted for Senate President Tito Soto. Why support him? And why was this change needed?
Well, this change was needed in order to consolidate the good work that had already been done by previous Senate leaderships and expand it moving forward. Of course, I voted for Senator Tito as our new Senate President dahil sabi ko nga dati na akong bilib sa liderato niya, which is why I voted for him as Senate President in the opening of session last July and proudly joined him in the minority with him as our minority leader then. So I think these two things came together, Ms. Maiki, yung bilib ko at bilib naming lahat na bumoto para sa kanya, sa liderato niya, sa panahon ngayon, no, in the context of the institutional challenges that the Senate is facing outside our walls and even inside. So I'm more hopeful, even more hopeful now. Now we will be up to the task.
And there are conflicting accounts, Senator Risa. So we'll just ask you, was Senator Escudero forced out or did he step down voluntarily? And how important is that distinction now?
It's very important. So I'm glad I can share with you, Ms. Maiki, that former Senate President Chiz Escudero was a real statesman until the last day of his term as our Senate President. He calmly received the news that enough of us ay gustong ihalal naman si Senate President Tito Soto bilang SP. And in what I think was a very important and even touching note to the transition yesterday, siya pa ang nag-administer ng oath of office kay ngayoy Senate President Tito Soto. So for me, this was one of our quieter but prouder moments as an institution to effect that kind of a transition. At salamat kay dating SP Cheese para doon.
Yeah, well said, Senator Risa. I also wanted to ask you, what did this have to do, the shakeup at the Senate leadership? What did it have to do with the flood control contractor donating 30 million pesos in 2022 to the campaign of Senator Escudero?
the whole question of a more open, transparent, and accountable budget process, plus the controversy now being heard in the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, sparked by the privileged speech of, and now SP Pro Tempore Ping Lacson on the flood control projects. These are all the big waves or the big noises buffeting not only our whole country, but the Senate as an institution. And it's on the mind of every citizen at pati kaming mga senador na mamamayan din naman na this was the best thing to do at this time. This was the best time to do this to effect a Senate leadership transition na mas ibobolster yung kakayahan at pati yung perception sa Senado that we can face these issues squarely, bring good answers to the table, and then push the envelope moving forward na isa kami sa mga institusyon sa ating bayan which will step up to bring more transparent and accountable governance, cleaner and complete budget execution to our citizens, citizen taxpayers.
Yeah, definitely. Going to specifics, the PCIJ report shows that Center Waste Construction, a major flood control contractor, donated $30 million to Senator Escudero's campaign. From your perspective, ma'am, how dangerous is this overlap between government contracts and political financing?
With due process that must be assured to everyone who is mentioned in connection with any of these cases, it remains important, of course, eminently important to the Senate to put up the guardrails where they should be. Kung saan yung tamang mga harang between the state, the private sector, civil society, and how these three most important sectors of our society interact in important processes, whether these are budget making or project execution or investigation, such as is going on now in the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. So importante para sa amin that those lines remain clear and strong, never perceived to be blurred. Kasi kapag nangyari yon, all the more the Senate has to strive as one of the institutions na tasked to do this para i-restore yung confidence ng at yung trust sa pagitan ng ating gobyerno at ng ating mga mamamayan.
Mm-hmm. Senator Hontiveros, you mentioned the Senate's Blue Ribbon Committee yesterday. Let's talk about the Diskaya testimony. DPWH contractors, the Diskayas, they now want to testify as state witnesses, possibly gaining immunity. They also admitted to giving 10 to 30% kickbacks to lawmakers and DPWH officials, but they presented no evidence beyond a signed affidavit. As trust is an issue, how much weight should the Senate give their testimony without any hard proof?
Oh, without any hard proof. If that's what it will look like, their affidavit until the end, then practically nothing. But an affidavit, a sworn affidavit, is still a potentially important first step. Ngayon, kailangan nilang backupan yan. Ms. Maiki, hindi pwedeng mag-aamin lang sila, maglalaglag lang ng ilang mga pangalan. They have to show the evidence or present corroborating witnesses to the revelations they made yesterday against each and every one of those named individuals. Kailangan din kumpletuhin nila yung istorya nila. I'm sure it didn't escape your attention that they spoke only of the periods 2022 until this year, 2025. What happened in 2016 to 2022? Kasi nauna nang inamin ni Sara Diskaya in an earlier hearing that they began receiving big national projects and therefore also buying their luxury vehicles, etc. in year 2016. So there's still a big gap. They have to pedal back to the years prior, 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much more that needs to be uncovered. This is really just the beginning. Senator Risa Hontiveros, the DOJ says that these stolen funds must be returned before the Diskayas can become state witnesses. What are your thoughts on this, on them even becoming state witnesses? Okay, we've lost audio with Senator Risa Hontiveros. We're going to try to get her back. We're going to be taking a quick break right now. Business 360 will be right back. We're back with Senator Risa Hontiveros, and we were just talking about the Discaya testimony before we lost audio, but now we're back on, so let's get to it. Senator Hontiveros, the Discayas want to turn state witnesses. The DOJ says that they need to return stolen funds first before they can even qualify. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, they have to follow what DOJ just said. Ang may hawak sa Witness Protection Program is the Department of Justice. And gaya din ng sinabi ni Akbayan Representative Chel Joc, no, hindi pwedeng basta-basta na lang magiging state witness na iisang affidavit pa lang na hindi pa nga naka-back up ng evidence. So they have to show the goods, no, the evidence, the witnesses, and if DOJ says return the money, then return the money before they can avail of the privilege of becoming state witness. Usually pa nga, Ms. Maiki, state witness are the least guilty, are the most innocent. I don't even know if you can qualify them as least guilty by a long shot. But okay, if they fulfill the requirements of the DOJ, then DOJ will make that decision.
Correct. Well, it's a lot of funds to recoup before we even get to that point. The Discaya couple named big names, including House Speaker Martin Romualdez and Representative Zaldico in connection with alleged insertions and unprogrammed funds for the flood control projects. Representative Ko is currently overseas receiving medical treatment. Senator, what's your reaction to these revelations?
Well, as we were talking about earlier, Ms. Maiki, due process demands that every person mentioned in any of these allegations also must, and they've started to reply, speak up for themselves. And moving forward, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will try to dig deeper into the truth or lack of it in the Discaya's revelations yesterday. And again, they have to back everything up with their evidence and any witnesses. But I guess what this shows us, Ms. Maiki, is that no one, not even or especially we who are in government, can escape scrutiny kapag ang mamamayan na ang nagtatanong. And I believe that's what we're seeing these days. Mga mamamayan, mga netizens, yung mga business organizations natin which have started to come out with a good number of statements this week, civil society, lahat naniningil. Hindi lamang sa mga contractors, hindi lamang sa mga DPWH officials at employees, pero pati sa aming mga legislators because we hold the power of the purse. Kami ang gumagawa ng budget taon-taon. So if ever questioned or challenged, then we simply have to prove and to retain or regain the trust that indeed we are holding the people's money, the people's taxes, and spending them properly.
You know, fresh in recent memory, Senator Risa, is the pork barrel scam. For example, Janet Lim Napoles went to jail, but no lawmaker did. There is no, Janet Lim Napoles without any politicians. This time, are you confident that the Senate will pursue these cases fully, even if it means implicating powerful colleagues?
Well, the good thing also is that the Senate is not alone. Nandun yung TRICOM sa House of Representatives at nanawagan na dati pa si dating Minority Leader, ngayon Senate President Tito Soto, at iba pa na magkaroon ng third or independent investigating body para mabuo, makumpleto nitong tatlo at least yung malaking puzzle. And recently, the President announced na magbubuo din nga daw siya ng ganyang klaseng independent investigative body. I think at this point in time, Ms. Maiki, this issue has been blown too wide open for forcing everything back into the bottle and putting a stopper to it. Nakikita yung reaksyon ng ating mga kababayan, pati mga netizens. I think nothing will be sufficient and nothing will satisfy our constituents other than as thoroughgoing an investigation as possible. And then yes, kailangan, I think Senator Ping also said this, kailangan meron talagang maparusahan. Not just one, as before, not just a few, as a few times before, but as many as possible na talagang mapatunayang culpable have to be tried in court, cases filed against them. And if found guilty, then they must also pay the price.
Yeah. Okay. 15 senators signed to remove Senator Escudero, cutting across party lines. What does this broad coalition tell us about the shifting alliances at the Senate? And, pushing that envelope further, with the opposition now in control of the Senate, the stage is set for a possible impeachment trial against Vice President Sara Duterte in 2026. How does the shift in Senate majority change the landscape for that case?
Of course, an impeachment process remains one of the four main tasks that the Senate as an institution may take up from one time to another. Pero yung current impeachment complaint against VP Sara is not only archived in the Senate, pero dumadaan pa sa pag-consider ng Korte Suprema ng motions for reconsideration. So, if and only if and when the Supreme Court reverses itself and gives way to the motions for reconsideration, then and only then na pwede naming debatihin ulit sa Senado at kung kaya makakuha ng majority vote to remove it from the archives to which our colleagues consigned it before. Doon lang kami makaka-move forward if ever on that. And it's similar to our other work right now. Important kasi may kinalaman sa transparency and lalo na accountability. Sorry, I missed the first two parts of your question. The first part about
Shifting alliances.
Dito sa Senado. I would actually be glad if it were a bit harder because to mean that mas nagkakaroon tayo ng political party system, but it was important as you observed na marami sa amin mula sa iba't ibang mga partido came together with that desire to support the leadership of former Minority Leader Tito Sotto as our new Senate President, with all the potential and hope it represents to move forward collectively as an institution. Yeah. And the middle part of your question, Ms. Maiki?
That was okay. You covered it
Yeah.
already, but there's one more question before we let you go. We're
Okay.
kind of out of time. As the country looks for credible leaders to restore trust in our institutions, many are wondering if you'll be running for president in 2028. Is that a possibility that you're considering?
The certainty is that I'm working to unify the opposition and for us to come up to agree on a process of selecting our standard bearer and full slate. So President, Vice President, full Senate slate, as many district and party list reps as we can run, and as many local government officials as we can run within the ambit of the opposition. Yung pala, I won't presume to speak for everyone in the new majority that each and everyone considers himself or herself majority. Opposition. Pero ako, Ms. Maiki, I'll continue to work on strengthening the opposition. And kung sino man sa amin ang magiging standard bearer, we're all open to that. Pero kung sino man sa amin ang magiging standard bearer, basta para sa akin, we will be united at that time.
All the best to you and your colleagues
so
at the
much.
Senate, Senator Risa Hontiveros. Now let's check on Asian markets this Tuesday morning with investors balancing regional trends and local risks. Right now, the Nikkei 225 is in the green, up by 0.3%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index up sharply, up by 1.2%. Shanghai's Composite flat with a slight upward bias. And Singapore's Straits Times Index going the other way, down by 0.3%. Taking a look at our market, Philippine shares ended Monday lower as investors cashed in on gains while digesting the ongoing corruption probes. The main index slipped nearly 1% to close just above the 6,100 level. Value turnover was thin, only 5.7 billion shares traded hands, with foreigners turning net sellers. Analysts expect caution to dominate near-term trading, with corruption hearings here at home and U.S. inflation data this week both weighing on sentiment. Any signal from the Fed ahead of its mid-September policy meeting could set the next direction. Now let's take a look at the main gauge as of 10:26 this morning. PSE index is in the green, flat with a slight upward bias at 61.02. Broader all shares index flat with a very slight upward bias as well at 36.83. Taking a look at the sub-indices, all are trading in the green except for the industrial counter, which is down by about 0.4%. Volume is at 224 million shares, valued at 580 million pesos. Market breadth is positive with 76 advancers, 53 decliners, and 50 stocks unchanged. Taking a look at the currency markets, the peso opened at 56.69 against the dollar, unchanged from its previous close. Corruption scandals involving government officials are now rippling into the consumer market, with reports that sales of luxury brands are taking a hit. Sujin Kim looks into whether the headlines are translating into lower demand.
Economists and industry experts are dismissing speculation that luxury brands are taking a hit solely because of contractor and political family issues. Property research firm Collier says the impact on luxury housing and condos remains negligible, even if some politicians temporarily curb spending. The Philippine Institute for Development Studies adds that any reduction has little effect on overall demand. Demand is driven more by high-income individuals, digital-savvy consumers, and tourists, and not just opulent purchases by a few. But Rivera warns of reputational damage. When luxury brands are repeatedly linked to public funds, their aspirational appeal may fade, and consumers may hold back out of concern for optics and ethics. Headlines could erode demand if the sector is cast in a negative light. Just this July, Bilyonaryo News Channel released the list of alleged budget insertions ahead of the 2025 SONA.
Mahiya naman kayo!
In his State of the Nation address, President Marcos condemned questionable funds, ghost projects, and collusion among officials and congressmen. On August 11, Malacanang released a list of the top 15 contractors. Around this time, in the market, retailer SSI Group, operator of Prada, Gucci, and Hermes, posted a significant drop mid-August, consolidating at the low end. Analysts attribute this to overall weak consumption.
Demand for discretionary, especially high-end goods, remain to be muted as of the moment.
Pressure is also being felt by Bloomberry Resorts, which operates Solaire and several luxury restaurants.
The main thing is the decline in the VIP segment. VIP meaning the big-ticket gambling.
According to Acoba, consumption is expected to bounce back with the holiday season. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
On paper, the economy looks stable. Low inflation, strong banks, ample reserves. But on the ground, businesses across industries are under pressure from new U.S. tariffs, a widening deficit, and a barrage of corruption scandals. Today, we hear from George Barcelon, the chairman of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the voice of business confidence, governance, trade, and investment climate, on how industries are coping. Good morning, sir. Thanks
Good
for being
morning,
here with
Maiki,
us.
for inviting me.
Yeah, always good to have you. Okay, sir. On paper, the economy looks stable. But what's the situation on the ground as you and your members see it?
Well, so far, I think the economy is holding on. There was a blip earlier when the exchange rate went beyond 57. I think it has stabilized around 56, 60, something like that. So that's workable. The export sectors have been, especially in the electronic sectors, they're doing well. Other sectors are somehow still surviving, primarily because there's uncertainty in the tariff issue with the U.S. Of course, we're now taxed 19%, which is not the lowest, but we're comparable to Indonesia. But having said that, one of the concern, again, is the food security for the economy. As of late, we have the weather has not been very cooperative. We have, especially during the planting season of July and August, when we have flooding. So definitely that will affect the harvest, harvest time.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the economy is performing quite acceptable.
Okay, speaking of the economy, GDP growth holding at 5.4%, below expectations. And with yesterday's Senate leadership shakeup, what are the biggest concerns among you and your members?
Well, we still have to wait and see with the new leadership of Senator President Tito Soto. But in the past, he has been the Senate President before. And I think he's seasoned at this
Yeah, he's a
task.
seasoned guy for the job.
So we're comfortable with him.
Okay, talking about the political noise and the corruption headlines, when you talk about the General Appropriations Act, we see the theme is budget cuts across agencies. But then they're splurging on flood control. What does this tell you about the government's priorities?
Well, what I can say is really the public is very, they've reached the point where they're angry already because of that kind of amount that we're seeing on the scam and flood-related public works project. When you think about the amount of, reaching in the billions, it's sad to say that our memories are short. When we think of the scam before on the PDAF, Philippine Development Assistance Fund, during that time, which is not too long ago, 10 years ago, the fund involved, I saw a study, was about 10 billion pesos during that period of 5 to 8 years. Well, this one is just 3 years, and you're talking fund of close to 1 trillion pesos.
Yeah, we could have built a new city.
You could build a new city. So that's a thing that worries, our citizen, that it reflects on poor governance.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there's concern that whether this might affect our credit rating. The credit rating seems to be holding on, but when they review our economic performance, I hope not, but it might.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is damaging to business confidence. Drilling into that point, DPW contractors, the Discayas, have linked several names, big names, Martin Romualdez, Aldico, and many other names, but no hard evidence.
Yes.
Still, corruption headlines are front and center. Yeah. How damaging is this to business confidence and investor confidence in the Philippines?
Well, it is damaging because of the fact that, business making money is not exactly easy, and we're the people paying the taxes. And of course, we look forward that our country will be moving ahead in infrastructure work, which affects our agri sectors, food security, and logistic costs. And so, seeing all this is quite what do you call it? For people to talk about it in a very bad point of feeling,
with
right?
all the clamor now, all the headlines, are you confident that this time around, not just the middlemen will be held accountable?
Well, the whole issue was brought out during the SONA of the president. Okay, we commend him for this, but there needs to be follow-up. And I think what's important is for the president to really fully back up the agencies that's tasked to check on this. Okay, he should allow whoever is tasked to clean up the Department of Public Works, which is at this point in time the newly appointed Secretary Vince Dizon. So if he gives him that support, no stone left unturned, regardless of how high this would go, whether he might step on some powerful politicians, then we will get somewhere.
Okay. The Discayas were your partners in Miru. Were you surprised?
No, they were not with a partner in the consortium. Initially, they were considered, but after due diligence, I think they decided not to include them.
Okay. Moving on, Malacanang is proposing a new commission to probe the flood control anomalies. But the Ombudsman and COA already have that mandate. Are you in favor of creating a new independent body just to look into this?
As I said, it'd be nice if you can get people who are really independent-minded and who will get the full support of the higher-ups, like the President BBM. But the Department of Budget and Management, COA, they should do their work. So in a way, it's surprising for us in the public to find such a big amount that there was an oversight on such big amount when we have these government agencies looking after it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this new commission, this duplication, is necessary?
If we're all serious about this, okay, as I said from the very top, the private sector has to be looped in. The civic social organizations have to be part of this investigative commission. And given the timeline, we should not let this drag on. If you look back, there are quite a number of cases during the time of Janet Napoles
Yes.
that were dismissed. She was not found guilty, I think 15 or 16 cases. Why? Because they could not find her guilty due to, unreasonable doubt. So they cannot find her guilty. So in this particular case, as I heard earlier from your interview with Senator Risa Hontiveros, again, it's based on the evidence.
That's what's hard to.
That's
hard.
what's
The
that's hard to
affidavit, that's
get.
easy, but the evidence. That's,
The evidence.
That's
okay.
very tricky. To this day, with reference to the Janet Lim Napoles case, we have still not recovered.
Yes,
So
she
many
was, based on court decision, she was asked to refund something in two tranches, something to be in the amount of 50 million pesos. Now, I don't know whether she has or not, but when you put that in comparison to the amount that we're talking about, that's really peanut. Here, you're talking about the same amount, but in billions of pesos. So I hope that whoever is found guilty, of course, they should have their day in court. But if they're found guilty, then the law should apply.
Yeah.
And they should refund. Whether it's how much, it's up to the whoever is investigating.
Yeah. Okay. On that note, the DOTR budget has been cut, delaying big ticket transport items like the subway and the railways. How worried are your members about this?
For those projects that are in the pipeline, we hope that they will continue. But again, there must be timeline to be met. So the Department of Public Transportation should be on top of things. We're happy that the EDSA repavement was postponed. Okay, and that really brings comfort to people who are in business who apply the EDSA route. But we still need a lot of new roads, considering the capacity of cars and the logistic trucks and everything. Mm-hmm. So I hope that they would be selective in some of these projects wherein the funding is required for
Because
completion.
These are things that we need.
For completion, yeah. We don't want it to be held up, and then the contractor will give the reason I couldn't complete because I didn't get paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still on infrastructure, President Marcos is giving zero budget for DPWH flood control for 2026 because he wants to rid the budget of anomalies and problematic items. What are your thoughts on this move?
Well, my thought is that in the 2025 GAA, the budget that's allotted for the public works flood control is almost half a trillion. Yeah, I think 480 billion, something like that. Yeah. Now, I don't know how much has been spent, but based on the report of the Department of Budget Management, the data that I see is that they've released 96% of the GAA. So I don't know how much is left in the Department of Public Works. But having said that, again, the government should be selective. Okay, give priorities on projects that are ongoing, are doing well, are not ghost projects. So those should continue because the multiplier effect to business is quite broad. Now, not to allot any more for 2026. Okay, coming from a base of almost half a trillion pesos. Okay, I think the Secretary Dizon will have to review that. He was asked by the Congress to clean up this 800 to 900 billion pesos public works scam in 7 to 8 days. I thought that it's kind of short for him to accomplish anything. And definitely I wish him all the best. He's somebody I know and he's quite capable.
Yeah.
But again, it's really the support that he will get from the higher-ups.
They need the support from Malacanang to do the job, to really prosecute to the fullest degree. On the plus side, we've got RSA, we've got MVP, tycoons stepping up with flood control efforts. What are your thoughts on the private sector taking the lead here?
Well, I commend them for their initiative. They are now teaming up in various sectors, like the energy sectors. They've teamed up. And I'm glad to read about dealing with the flood control system. But
Beyond
we
these
need, yes, but what we need is to have an overall plan for the flood control. You cannot do it.
Just elevate their city and
Yes,
everything
yes.
else
You
will
cannot do
flood
it
around
bits and pieces because some places that you are avoiding floods, so the roads are what's called landfill to be higher, but the other areas are affected.
Yeah.
So we need to have a sort of a Marshall Plan for this.
Comprehensive plan. Beyond these initiatives, is there more the private sector can do to address infrastructure gaps and help restore public trust?
You know, the funds are coming from the government, okay? And the money is coming from taxpayer, right? So I think the private sector should be looped in. Okay? As I said earlier, when I look back, during different administration, first we have what we call BUB, budget bottom-up budget, okay? And then we have what we call grassroots participatory budget. But these are nice to hear, but it's a question of implementation. Okay? So the private sector should be looped in, and I think the civil social organizations should be made aware in their locality what are these projects, and then I think they should have a billboard that shows the timeline of these projects,
Monitoring.
so they can have monitor.
Yeah.
Unlike all of a sudden you're hearing multi-billion projects that are nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Okay? And the private sectors are in the lost. Okay?
Yeah, more needs to be done for disclosure.
More collaborations would definitely help.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, George Barcelon, the president of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Thank you, Mikey.
We're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. President Marcos and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet witnessed the signing of 3 agreements strengthening ties between the two countries, from security to education to tourism. The deals include MOUs between the Philippine and Cambodian police, a higher education cooperation agreement, and an air services pact to boost travel and cargo exchange. Marcos also called on businesses from both countries to explore partnerships in non-traditional sectors like renewable energy, infrastructure, and agro-processing. Industries, he said, are crucial to driving growth and social development. The Commission on Audit flags fraudulent flood control projects in Bulacan worth 342.66 million pesos, identifying both public works officials and private contractors as responsible. Co-auditors found ghost projects, substandard construction, and undocumented cost increases across multiple contracts. The report, now part of the Ombudsman's investigation, tags 13 former officials of the Public Works Department's Bulacan 1st District Engineering Office for possible graft charges over 5 projects. It also names 3 contractors: Mark Allen Arevalo of Wow Builders, Maria Roma Angeline Rimando of St. Timothy Construction, and Sally Santos of Sims Construction Trading. Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon has asked Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral to face the Senate on alleged budget solicitations, while engineer Paul Jason Duya is set to be dismissed for his role in the scam. The House Committee on Appropriations approves the Office of the President's 27.36 billion peso budget for 2026, even amid calls from some lawmakers for greater scrutiny. The proposed budget is 72% higher than last year's, driven largely by preparations for the 2026 ASEAN Summit. Of the total, only 75.92 million is for automatic appropriations, while 27.29 billion is set for new spending, mostly ASEAN-related. The panel voted 56-5 to end the hearing, citing parliamentary courtesy, a practice that discourages Congress from closely interfering with the president's office. In a move that could reset the Senate's anti-corruption drive, Senate President pro tempore Panfilo Lacson now heads the Blue Ribbon Committee. The shakeup comes as lawmakers intensify their probe into billions of pesos worth of questionable flood control projects. Hannah T. reports.
Senate President pro tempore Panfilo Lacson is set to take over the powerful Blue Ribbon Committee, replacing Senator Rodante Marcoleta. The announcement was made by newly installed Senate President Tito Soto. The Blue Ribbon Committee is reserved for the Senate majority. Marcoleta, who now belongs to the minority, will have to vacate his post. The timing comes as President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. declared that no funds will be allocated for flood control projects in 2026. The committee is in the middle of an inquiry into billions in alleged anomalies in those same projects. The controversy has shaken the Senate. A BNC source earlier said it was a key factor behind the ouster of former Senate President Cheese Escudero. Escudero earlier admitted that Centerways Construction donated $30 million to his 2022 campaign, the same company that President Marcos identified as one of the top contractors cornering flood control projects.
I serve at the pleasure, Mr. President, of the majority, and understand and respect the decision of the majority of my colleagues. I hold no grudges. I hold no ill feelings. I congratulate Senator Vicente Tito Soto III on his election as Senate President, and I wish you well, Mr. Senate President.
With Soto now leading the chamber, the Senate composition is also poised to change. Senator Alan Peter Cayetano confirmed that talks are underway to form a new minority bloc.
It's urgent that we not only have a functioning Senate, but that the majority and minority will play its part.
Cayetano revealed that as many as 10 senators may join the minority, including some members of the so-called Duterte bloc.
So ang bilang namin baka 8, 9, or 10 will join the minority. We'll meet tomorrow to finalize.
When asked if he's poised to become minority leader, Cayetano said,
We'll probably sleep on it then. Kaming mga may asawa, siyempre kailangan din namin magpaalam muna. We'll finalize tomorrow.
Cayetano stressed that the real enemy is not individual rivals, but the culture of corruption itself.
But what's important is that nagkakaisa lahat na ang kalaban dito is both the system that it slowly crept in pero grabe talaga yung nangyari, no? So politics should be temporary, but we should have real change, diba? Yung transformation talaga.
Senators expect the flood control probe to continue under Lacson, who brings with him a reputation for hardline anti-corruption investigations. Hannah T. Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Another round of fuel price hikes hits motorists this week. Oil companies announced that gasoline will go up by 1 peso per liter, diesel by 1 peso and 40, and kerosene by 70 centavos. The Department of Energy blames the increase on the escalating Russia-Ukraine conflict, new U.S. sanctions on Iran, and OPEC's limited production boost. Elsewhere, the Murdoch family reaches a deal that paves the way for Rupert Murdoch's son, Lachlan, to take control of their global media empire, including Fox News and the Wall Street Journal. The agreement ends a long-running power struggle over the future of one of the world's most influential media groups. Under the deal, Rupert's other children, James, Elizabeth, and Prudence, will sell their personal holdings in Fox and News Corp within 6 months. The new family trust will be created with the children as beneficiaries, and they will receive cash from the sale of about 16.9 million shares of Fox Class B stock and 14.2 million shares of News Corp Class B stock. The amount of the payout is not disclosed. Now, street artist Banksy unveils a new mural outside London's High Court, showing a judge striking a protester with a gavel. The stenciled image appears days after the arrest of hundreds of demonstrators protesting the ban on Palestine action, a group now classified as a terrorist organization in the United Kingdom. The mural depicts a judge beating a protester holding a blood-stained placard. Banksy has remained silent about the piece, though he is known for his political art and long-standing support for Palestinian causes. The mural, now behind barricades, is painted on the walls of the historic Royal Courts of Justice. Art markets are watching closely. Banksy works often command millions at auction, and politically charged pieces like this one can spark global debate, affecting both cultural, capital, and investor interest in controversial art. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.